Last week we were on debt and we talked about the issues concerning debt, the negative and the positive effect of debt. Now last week we ended the class by talking about the positive effect of public debt. So what are the negative effects of debt? What are the negative effects of debt? If you collect loan in your office privately as a citizen, what are the effects? What effect does it have on you? You have that positive negative. All of a sudden you have the burden, you have the burden of paying the monthly payment, on that particular man. What would that do? That will reduce the amount of money you have. Wouldn't it? It will reduce the amount of money you have to do every other thing you should have done because it's using part of the money to service them. So also in public sector, when government borrow money, it immediately puts on us the burden of payment of tax. How many of you have looked through the thing I said to you guys concerning debt servicing? Have you guys seen it? What is the amount, what is the percentage of our debt servicing on our debt servicing? Look at it really. Our debt servicing is about 30% of our budget. In fact, 30% of our budget. At the point it goes to as much as 45% of our budget. Meaning that when we have, for example, this year's budget, we have how many trillion in our budget for this year? 7.3. Let's say 7 trillion, I mean. 6 point something and 6 point something. Let's say 6 trillion is our budget. 10% of 6 trillion is what? 10%. I mean, simple this thing now. Divide it by 3 now. 2 trillion. That means we are spending 2 trillion to pay debt. Not to pay debt, to service debt. You can imagine assuming that 1/3 of our entire budget is used to service debt. And we also have another one, we now have 1 point something trillion that we are using to do capital projects. Now, can you imagine if we are able to have that 2 trillion and the 1 point something trillion added together to do capital projects for us, to do roads, to do rails, to do counterpart funding? Wouldn't it be nicer? So one of the negative effects of debt is that, like she noted, positively you quickly have money with you, that is ready, cash that you can spend. However, in the long term, it causes burden on you. It also causes inflation. Because when government borrows money from private sector, it increases the amount of money and the amount of interest that you can charge on it. It reduces savings. We agree? And once your savings is reduced, what happens? The investment reduces, and that's why Nigeria cannot invest in infrastructure, because most of our money we are using it to pay off debt. How does it affect distribution of income? Can somebody, based on how does budget and tax and the public debt affect distribution of income? Based on everything we have talked concerning distribution of income, how does it affect? Anybody else? I don't mind you reading what I wrote, explaining your own words though. Can somebody else? Does everybody have the slides? If you have the slides, you are reading it, explain it to me. So that what I'm trying to achieve is that you understand the distribution of income and you also understand the impact of debt. In a normal situation, if you are living below poverty line, do you have enough to save? Will you not have enough to borrow somebody? I mean, it's only those that have enough to save that can have enough to borrow. Now, if the distribution of income is improper or is not balanced, ab initio, the rich is rich. That means it's the rich that has enough money to save, and therefore they have enough money that government can now come and borrow. For example, the government has come out to say we should go and buy the treasury bills. How many people have seen that? You seen all of it? Have you guys seen the advert? It's not what? What? Eurobond loan. What? Green bond. Yeah, green bond. Have you seen it? I have seen green bond. The advert of green bond. Nigeria is trying to give everybody a chance to purchase treasury bills. Therefore, they make it so public, so everywhere, they call it the name green bond. It's almost 18%. Because I said to some of my clients, I think it was right. These are things that you should be aware of, because something like this can before it's called FGN savings bond. FGN savings bond. Let me read for you. The Debt Management Office has rolled out plans to commence the issuance of monthly FGN savings bonds starting from March 2017. Afri Invest Security Limited has been appointed as one of the agents designated through the Nigerian Stock Exchange to offer this service to their clients, and we are delighted to inform you about these inherent benefits. Savings bond is a bond issued by the Debt Management Office on behalf of federal government. The bond is targeted at low-income earners to encourage saving and also earn more income as interest when compared to their savings account with the bank. The instrument is risk-free and is backed by the full faith and credit of federal government. Full faith and credit. What does that mean? Except Nigeria goes into default. Do you understand? The Nigeria must pay back that bond. What's the bond? What's the bond? Huh? What's the debenture? What? Yes, I'm listening to you, sir. Don't go on. The bond or the venture? Which one are we talking about? Bond, okay. The financial instrument. That's the other. Okay. Can somebody help me, please? Please, anybody? Doesn't private sector give us bond? What's the difference between bond and bills? Treasury bills, treasury bonds. Which one is short term, which one is long term? Okay, so that in case, those are the kind of language that you use normally. So, and they said that features, minimum subscription is 5,000, maximum 50 million, fixed interest rate will be paid every quarter, 2-3 years tenure, benefit, interest, income from savings, bond are tax free, that means it's tax exempted, competitive fixed rate, saving bond are considered liquid as tradable on stock exchange. FGN savings bonds can be used as collateral loan, with offer guaranteed return, encourage financial inclusion among. Now, with what I've read, how do we use that to display system? Because that's what we're talking about, I mean. We're talking of how that, debt can affect distribution of income in a society because the rich has enough money that it has saved, and it's only person that can save that can have enough to now. This one now they said that 5,000 naira. When some people no 5,000 naira. How many people have a savings of 5,000 naira in a month? Because the idea is that instead of keeping your money into your savings account, one of the functions of your savings account is that the money you want to save. You understand? When you put it in your savings account, keep it there. So, and savings account, what's the interest of savings account now? 0.52%. Now, I don't know the percentage of it. Let's say this one is maybe 10% or 50%. Will it pay you more to bring your money from your savings account and keep carry and leave it in your bank? Therefore, you'll be able to make more money. But the people that cannot save, and they benefit from this, you cannot save it. So the people that don't have savings, that you cannot save it, they don't have enough money to even save 5,000 naira. They can't benefit. Therefore, the people that can save will be people that the interest will go through. Therefore, it is them that will benefit from, because government is actually borrowing money from them. Do you understand? Does it make sense to you guys? So, yes, now the rich that, I mean, the poor that decided to stay poor. Yeah? You said what? Capitalism, we're a capitalist society. We're a capitalist society. What are the moderation? Now, sometimes government also they are taking one of the negative is unproductive loans. Government takes loans that in the final analysis is not productive considering it, and there's a lot of it that we can use as an example these days. I mean, that's one of the loans that are. Now, let's also look at the loans, for example, the loans that are being used by some of the state governments. I mean, now, productive loan does not mean that the loan was not used to do something. But what is the impact, direct impact on the GDP of that economy? I've always argued that if a government wants to take a loan, you should take the loan in consideration of the GDP of that state, especially the amount of tax that state can generate. Now, let's not talk of debt redemption. When you collect loan, one of the things about loans is that you pay back a bit. How do we redeem debt? Now, there's been various studies of how debt can be repaid or managed, so to say, in public sector. Let's highlight those ones that have been said in the past. One of them is that liquidation. You can decide I'm not paying anymore. In the private and individual, countries have done it. You understand? Countries have done it and said, okay, I'm just not paying. What do we do? And Obasanjo was trying to do something before we got debt forgiveness. Obasanjo went there and said, come, should I sign not to pay? Come. Because this loan you're talking, it's becoming a problem to my country, it's becoming a problem to everybody. But we have seen states, the countries that have said it. For example, Russia, at the point, was owing a lot of money to a lot of countries. Russia was like America in 1976. It was owing a lot of money. At the point, Russia said, hi, I'm not paying. Just forget it. You want to go to war? Another one is conversion. Debt conversion. Debt conversion is you had borrowed money probably at 25% interest rate. And you see that it's not sustainable. You now decide and say, please, let's change this debt. Let's make it a lower rate of interest. Are you getting it? And therefore, debt is still there. It's assumed you have paid because they need to, like, you get the first one and we start it all over for you. It's like when you are changing banks, I mean, you want to change bank and you are having loan from one bank, the other bank will tell you, don't worry, you take over the loan from that bank, I mean, and so that they will want to do it. It's also like that. Yes, saving and destruction. You can also use your budget surplus. I mean, if you have surplus in the amount of money you have, you can use it to pay off part of your debt moving to you. In an ideal situation, I mean, you need to pay part of your debt. Sometimes you can also set up annuity. What's the difference between annuity and sinking fund? Annuity you are actually paying every year. Sinking fund is that in your own account you are setting aside the money, you are not paying the creditor. At the end, you now take all the money and liquidate the entire debt. Do you understand? So, for example, in annuity, if you borrow 1 million naira for 10 years and you decide to pay 1 million every year, that means at the end of the second year, you have paid 2 million, I mean, and you'll be having your debt to 8 million naira. But in sinking fund, you'll be setting aside that 1 million, so you still have on your balance sheet 10 million as debt, but you are going to have 2 million in your sinking fund, I mean, which when you net up still comes to the same thing. The only difference is that annuity money quickly goes to the person, the flow is there, but sinking fund you keep it until the time to pay it. One, you can also charge capital levy. Capital levy, which is something I have advocated in Nigeria, so that we can all be interested in governance. If, for example, when they say we need how many trillion to do roads, and they say for the Lagos Ibadan road that we are going to build, every male adult should pay 10,000 naira. Wouldn't it be nice? Huh?
Plus tax?
Yes, ma'am. Capital levy is very tax. Capital levy is very tax. Tax is that one because now we now said that okay, we are doing so thing based on that. We want to charge everybody 5,000 naira. Everybody above the age of 18. Has it ever happened? Yes, it has happened in Nigeria.
How are you taking it for them?
Let me give you when it happened in Nigeria. How many of you have heard of free education? The end of free education around the world. Was it free? No. It was not free. What our did was to tell every male adult to pay £1.10. Every male adult pay £1.10, and when your kids are coming to school, they will bring an evidence of that payment. So if you have 10 kids, when they only pay £1. If you have £1, so everybody pays, and the money was used to establish those schools and run the education schools. It was outside the tax. And that's why when people are politicians, when they say they are going to give us free education, there is technically nowhere in the world where education is free. Do you understand? Because we need to pay teachers, we need to keep them. They are the people that we must pay the most because they help the mind of the young ones. Sometimes also, we can also decide to increase tax if you want to pay back debt. I mean, you can increase tax and say based on the tax, whatever we have done, therefore let us increase tax. It's also a way of paying back the debt. So that brings me to one issue. Paris Club and London Club. Now, in your notes, in your pack, erroneously, I don't know how they decided to make it that way. They should have changed it by now, don't they? By the time we made that video. They refer to Paris Club and London Club as source of debt. They are not source of debt. They are places where you go to negotiate your debt status. Am I making sense to you guys? Yes, let's go back to how we collect loan. You either borrow money from internally, or you borrow money externally. When you borrow money externally, you either borrow money from one country directly to another country. That is what is called what? Bilateral, or you borrow money from syndicated countries. Maybe 3 countries come together to borrow you one money, or you borrow money from those organizations that we have set up, Brentwood have set up that we can borrow money from. sometimes you may fall into default. That means you don't meet your obligation in terms of paying the interest, or the loan repayment become due and you can't pay them back. Where do they take you to? Do you understand? As a country, because we don't have any place where we can say country to country. Therefore, Paris Club was set up. Paris Club is where countries meet to discuss counterpart countries' debt issues. That's where they can renegotiate debt. That's where issues concerning debt, maybe interest can be reduced. In fact, that's where we got our debt forgiveness from. We got it from the Paris Club because the London Club are basically money borrowed from banks. Do you understand? International bank. And as you know that London is supposed to be the financial hub of the world. Therefore, borrowing money from banks, international banks, for example, you know that Nigeria borrow money from China bank, I mean? This ECC that is in Nigeria that is doing some project usually borrows money from their own China bank as they don't come and do the project they are doing for us. Am I making sense to you? Now, if Nigeria decides, say, we are no more paying, CECC come and start going to your country, what will they take us to? They will take us to the London Club because the China bank that borrow them money will take us there. But if we borrow, like if you see that thing I said to you guys, we borrow money from France, directly, we borrow money from France, we borrow money from China, Chinese government. Now, if we default from paying the money we borrow from Chinese government or France, they won't take us to London Club, they will take us to Paris Club. That's why they're going to go and negotiate and say, this man, what happened? You can do that in Bangalore. Do you want us to go to court? Bank doesn't like going to court. I mean, they don't like, because once they go to court, stay in action, they can't collect any other money. They are losing money every day. And Nigeria is very good. All those are guys, they will collect stay in action for 20 years. You have to love them, they are good at it. They will collect stay in action for 20 years. And the guy will be collecting the money. Do you understand? And be living his life while the court is still, the matter has to be decided in court. So usually when you go to the table with the bank, forget what they are like. They will come with entire power. Once you say no worry, let's go to the court. They will just tell you to buy. That's all trying to do something. Okay, we pay those amount, and usually you tell them that will be full and final thing. Once it's agreed, the other ones is written up as part of batch. So that is it concerning how we can, in terms of paying off of debt. Now, how do we manage debt? Yes, sir.
Yes. I think bank like that.
See, we don't use collateral. What we use is the fact that the sovereignty of Nigeria is there, and because the faith that Nigeria will continue to be in existence. Do you understand? Therefore, monies are borrowed to the public sector just based on recognition. Do you understand? Except the government is borrowing for specific projects. Do you understand? For example, especially when you are doing PPP, government will use that particular project as a collateral, and we have also seen that. So imagine if government, look at MM2. MM2 is a good illustration. MM2 was financed by Oceanic Bank. It was the collateral they used. Was the lead bank, was a lot of bank. Okay, at the end of the day, government came and said, our kids, wait. All the banks that borrow money, they have to be put at the matter. And what happens in matter today? I get what I'm saying. So usually at the end of the day, still result in the same thing. And that's one of the reasons why Nigeria is ranking very low in terms of ease of doing business in the world. Out of 180-something countries, number 160-something in terms of ranking. What is causing that? What is causing that is all these times where they negate or refuse to comply with agreements. Do you understand? That's what causes that doing business in Nigeria becomes risky. And when it becomes risky, what happens? The cost of doing it becomes high, I mean, because that means when you want to borrow money, what happens? The lending, because of the credit risk, that's what I'm looking for. The credit risk becomes high. Doing business in Nigeria is very risky. I mean, you have to deal with Nepal, you have to deal with in Lagos State, you deal with like 3 different sets of Lagos State people. Premises people will come, I mean, LRS will come, signage will come, who else will come? So Loma is easy now. Loma, too many people will come. Those are will even come and disturb you. Then they'll tell you don't park outside your fence. They deal with the banks, Abi. So let's go to debt management. Now we have talked about public debt, I mean, we have talked about how to repay the debt. One of the things, if you have debt, is how, what are the processes and plans, the strategies you have to manage debt that you have. Before now, somehow at a point, Nigerian debt profile and management was a bit scattered. Starting the Second Republic and during the British era, almost every state the borrowing has been weak. In fact, at the point some of the parastatals were allowed to borrow money directly once they can source the money, and the thing became a bit chaotic. And therefore we had to establish a strategic way of managing debt in Nigeria. And that was why we established the debt management office. So our debt management office essentially is the office that handles everything concerning debt in Nigeria. So if you want to know the amount of debt Nigeria is owing to not only individuals, public, or other countries, that information can only be sourced in the debt management office. Also, debt management office coordinates the loan debt of all the states. For any state to collect debt now, the debt must first go through debt management, and debt management must go to certify that that state has the capacity to repay the loan. And one of the things, the tools they have set in place is that debt management will be deduct as source and remit the money to wherever you have borrowed money from, so that we don't tempt you with the money, I mean. Because when money comes into your hand, imagine if you have collected the auto loan, and probably the auto loan you are supposed to pay 100,000 for 1 million naira salary every month. If they don't deduct the money from source, and the money comes to your account and stays there, and they say you should be giving them 10, what happens? The chances of default is not high, because 1 month you are going to have some issues like this. Let me postpone this month's payment till next month. Nothing will happen, Abi. And before you know it, you are even defaulting, and after you just affect. So therefore, debt management office, and that's why I explained that there was some months that, for example, for Osun State, received only 6 million naira in terms of allocation. So by the time they will give them their maybe 3 billion, which is the allocation from the federal government, but they will now remove the loans, the money that they are supposed to remove, and at the end of the removal, because only 6 million naira. No, what was that we were borrowing the money when the allocation was high. Do you understand? For example, look at 2011-12. Some states are now collecting 2-3 billion. We're collecting as high as 5, 6, 7 billion that time. Do you understand? When dollar was high, I mean, and that's why I say Jonathan did not say. All the states were collecting this money. What did they do with it? So at that particular time, it's like, for example, you are working in maybe you are working in a bank. How much salary in the bank? Every salary in the bank. As well as that very good. What's the entry salary of the bank? Let's say GCB. Now you now go to join a manufacturing company, not manufacturing company to pay lower. You now go and join any Nestle Foods. I think Nestle Foods pay lower than the bank. I'm just assuming you know. I think it's 140. I mean. Okay, now, say Nestle Foods, the entry level is 140. Zenith Bank, the entry level is 240. Now you went to collect your auto loan when you were in Diamond Bank. Are you getting it? When they were going to assess you, your capacity to pay, they will look at the salary you are earning, and the trend is, are you earning that money for the last 6 months or 3 months, I mean? And yes, you are earning that money. Based on that, you have the capacity to pay. All of a sudden, you lost your job in the bank, and you got a job with Nestle, luckily for you immediately. So, 140, 240. If they were deducting 30% of 240, what's 30% of 240? 100,000, 80,000. About 80,000, 82,000. If they're deducting 10% of 240 when you were in Diamond Bank, which is 82,000, you still have additional 120, I mean, to spend, I mean. Now, you move to Nestle Foods, and your salary is now 140, and you deduct 82,000. Are you getting what? That's something like that. What happened. So when they collected the loan, Nigeria was in the boom, and that's why some of them collected. That is it. So based on that, we have the debt management office, and the function of the debt management office is to ensure that our debt matter, both from the level of the state and the federal government, is managed, so that at every point in time we know the total debt in terms of borrowing and the federal government and states are borrowed. Now, technically that concludes all the issues that you can be asked in ICANN question concerning debts. We have touched on all the issues that you can be asked. How do we have debt? What are the causes of debt? How can debt happen? And all that. How do we manage debt? How do we repay debt? Those are the kind of things that transform. But we're going to treat one particular question tomorrow. That will be the only question we'll do tomorrow. Let's talk of, we have talked of debt. Debt happens when there's deficit. Let's now talk of surplus. Surplus happens when there is your public revenue is higher than your public expenditure. And whenever you have surplus, what do you do? Usually, what should come to mind?
Save.
What should come to mind is to pay off your debt. If you have surplus, anytime you have surplus, the first thing you want to do is to pay off all the money you have. You also want to save for the rainy day, or make sure that expenditure that you have delayed, that you have put away because you didn't have money at that time. How do we manage surplus in Nigeria? How do we manage surplus in Nigeria? Now, like I said, technically we have not been in surplus for a long time in Nigeria. We have always been in deficit, technically. But in a particular aspect, when it comes to excess crude account, we have been in surplus. And I think I explained to you guys how we arrive at the excess crude account once here. I mean, that usually we do a trend analysis, I mean, of 10 years, and based on that, come up with the normal rate, benchmark rate for dollar on sale of crude oil. And we now say anything above that is called excess. If you sell anything above that amount, it's called excess. So one of the things Nigeria tries to do is to establish an authority called Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. How many of you have heard it before? You have not heard of Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority? How many people are from the east here? From the east. Second Niger Bridge is being done by the money we had put in the sovereign wealth investment fund, and the interest is now what we are using to do the second Niger bridge. So we have the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, which we have established was we use it to do our savings. Any money we made unnecessary because and the whole idea then was that every state will also replicate this in their state so that they will have an investment authority that manage their investment. Some states did have, but most states did not bother because the governor will just collect the money and we go through and decide on what to spend. When we established the sovereign investment fund, we established three basic funds inside it. There was the stabilization fund, the future generation fund, and the infrastructure fund. So every money put in that sovereign wealth investment authority was divided into three heads. I mean, stabilization fund with that name, you understand that whenever the economy, for example, were in depression, I mean, we're in recession, and in this kind of scenario, we have just done is to go into that fund and brought out money from the stabilization fund and put in the economy. Same thing for the future generation fund. The future generation fund was planned that we should not spend all the money we have. We should also give some money for our unborn children, which was supposed to be putting money for them. The other was the Nigeria Infrastructure Fund, because when they were doing this sovereign wealth investment fund, they did a study and said that we had a 71 trillion naira infrastructure gap. Meaning that for us to be like a developed economy, if we have to build all the roads in Nigeria, if we have to have all the things we need 71 trillion naira. So the idea was to be saving money and using the money from the infrastructure fund to be funding those gaps so that at every year we can set a target and say the next 10 years we're going to do XYZ project. I mean, based on the amount of money we have saved. Look at what has happened to us. We need to borrow money to fund capital technically. Because by the time you pay the debt servicing, pay the salaries of civil servants, no more money, I mean. You also now need to borrow money again to even do the roads. And that's why some these are things that are not even sustainable. Are we sustainable? Now, unfortunately, we don't have the slide, but you can see it on this page. You see where a comparison between Nigeria's sovereign investment fund and other nations. You can see the sovereign investment fund of Nigeria and other nations. Look at Norway. Norway has, as at that time, they have $737 billion in their sovereign wealth fund, so that they can do in case of anything, they have something to fall back on. Nigeria, they have only $1 billion. And that's why some of these things we are where we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, any questions so far? Okay, then, if there's no question, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll continue where we stop.